I just said that to get. So if you're like it's picking me up, I can hear it.
All right, we've got about a minute before we get started. Does that sound like he pretty quickly decided he wasn't going to come? Are they counting down? All right, I've got 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, I'll call Brian Nevins up to the stand for our invocation. Brian, you're going to have to push the little button, the talk button on there. There you go.
That one?
Yep.
Okay, great. If you would pray with me, please. Lord, we continue to be the recipients of your grace, God, and we thank you for this opportunity for the Erlanger City Council to gather together to both lead and to serve. And we pray that you would give them the wisdom for the task ahead. And Lord, we also pray that you put it in the hearts of your children to check on one another, Lord, especially in this time of brutal weather, that we might indeed be a city of friends and family. And we thank you for all these things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brian. For those of you who may not know Brian, he is our police chaplain. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the regular council meeting, January 2nd, 2018. Let's please stand and say pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think that might be the best pledge I've ever heard in this room. There's a lot of voices there. That was nice. All right, I'll ask Mrs. Hoffman to take roll call.
Mr. Burke? Mr. Cahill?
Present.
Miss Kyle? Present. Mr. Skidmore?
Here.
Miss Suedkamp? Miss Cahill? Here. Mr. Montgomery? Here. Miss Skidmore? Here. Miss Pitts? Mr. Nicely?
Here.
Miss Betty?
Here.
Mr. Blankenship?
Here.
All right, we have a quorum, And I'll go over real quickly. I'll apologize to the crowd. We are dealing with a brand new sound system here tonight, which is great because you can hear us. But the bad part is that we're still learning it. So there is a little speak button on the mic. If the red light's on and this is also on up here, that means you're hot and we can hear you. If that's not, so when you want to talk, you're going to have to turn your mic on. All right. That's our quick little instruction. Okay, so you've received the minutes from the December 5th, 2017 regular council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt as written. Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mr. Cahill. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And then you've received a copy of the agenda for tonight's meeting, the January 2nd, 2018 regular council meeting. Are there any additions to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll ask that we get a motion and a second to adopt as presented. Motion by Mrs. Fetty, second by Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, motion carried. We'll move on to our special presentations, and I have not seen Hans this evening. Our business spotlight actually got changed mid-month, and I got word that Hans was not going to be here this evening. So if he's not here, we're going to go ahead and move on and skip over the business spotlight this evening. We'll invite him back another month. So we'll move on to the proclamation regarding the Lions starter football team champions. Yeah. All right. Proclamation by the mayor of the city of Erlanger, Kentucky, to all to whom these presents shall come. Whereas the Erlanger Lions starters football team, led by head coach Darrell Webb and assistant coaches Chase Barger, Tony Morris, Justin Dixon, Immer Viveris, John McGuire, Dave Meyer, Chris Marshall, Chad Critter, Jerry Reimer, and Les Sebastian had an exceptional season in 2017. And whereas the Erlanger Lions starter football team defeated the Bengal Tigers, Campbell County Red Devils, and the Northern Kentucky Bandits to win the 2017 Northern Kentucky Youth Football League Tiger Bowl Championship. And whereas the Erlanger Lions starter football team also won the 2017 Wildcat Bowl Championship by beating the undefeated Newport Wildcats. And whereas the Erlanger Lions starter football team had won the Tiger Bowl 5 years in a row, completing the dynasty. And whereas the Erlanger Lions starter football team was cheered on by the Erlanger Lions starter cheerleader squad, led by coaches Amber Schneider and Renee Hall. Now therefore, I, Tyson Hermes, mayor of the city of Erlanger, Kenton County, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim January 3rd, 2018 to be Erlanger Lions Starter Football Team Day in Erlanger, and do commend this observance to all our citizens given under my hand and the seal of the city of Erlanger on this second day of January 2018. Congratulations. Yeah. I'll ask the coaches to come on up to the front. I'll give you the proclamation, and I've also got 108 copies. Quite an accomplishment. I don't know how you do it. All right, next up we've got the Christmas lights winner presentation. We started this last year. This is the second year we've had our Christmas lights competition, and we've got The winners this year, and I don't know if I've seen them this evening, Bert and Melinda Brown. There you are. All right, come on up. Come on up. If you'd like to see the winning display, I think it's still on our Facebook page.
Can I make a comment, Tyson?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
I thought the Christmas display on Fitzgerald was absolutely awesome. We went past it 2 or 3 times, but I have a question. Were you Santa Claus going back and forth in front of the window? That was a really good effect, though.
There was a lot more competition this year than there was previously. It was stiff competition. It was a lot of great displays. All right. I'm not rushing ahead knowing that we've got a lot of people thinning out right now. We've got a lot more noise back there. As it starts to get a little bit more quiet, I'm going to call Adam Rigsby for the oath of office. Did Todd want to say something first? Is he here? Okay. Okay. All right. I think we'll do the swearing in first. Adam, do you have a Bible? Yes. Okay. Okay. If you'll hold up your right hand, left hand on the Bible. I'll go ahead and read through it, and then you can say I do at the end. I, Adam Rigsby, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, and be faithful and true to the Commonwealth of Kentucky so long as I continue a citizen thereof. And that I will faithfully execute, to the best of my ability, the office of Police Sergeant, according to law, and I do further solemnly swear that since the adoption of the present Constitution, I, being a citizen of this state, have not fought a duel with deadly weapons within the state nor out of it, nor have I sent a challenge to fight a duel with deadly weapons, nor have I acted as a second in carrying a challenge, nor aided or assisted any person thus offending, so help me God. All right? Congratulations. Did you want to say something? Yeah, good. Paper tonight.
First and foremost, I want to start off by thanking God, my family, and my friends, including my wife, for always being there no matter what I needed. I want to thank Chief Brendel, Assistant Chief Frater, and the rest of the administration for giving me this amazing opportunity. Also, thank you to Mayor Hermes, City Administrator Kremer, and all of Council. I'm incredibly humbled and excited for this opportunity. I'm really looking forward to working for the patrolmen and patrol women within our departments. I'm looking forward to leading them and helping them in whatever way I can. I'm also looking forward to working with the administration and all the officers to continue making Erlanger the best police department in the city. Thank you, or in the state. Thank you very much.
All right, next up, we've got the employee introduction. Andrew Fields, you're going to do that, Mr. Cahill?
Yes, I am. Andrew, you want to come on up here? So Andrew Fields came to us from the customer service and packaging industry, and I think that's real important. We're looking at that customer service and how we can improve that throughout the city. So he's a 2016 Lloyd High School graduate, currently attending NKU, working towards a degree in business administration. So we always look forward to that. Andrew started with Public Works in March as a seasonal employee, was awarded full-time status September 5th of 2017, and I'm sure he's getting broken really well with all our snow removal here coming on. He's engaged to Emily Phillips, enjoys working out in his off time. So, Andrew?
I want to thank you all for the opportunity. I look forward to many years of service. Thank you, guys.
Welcome aboard. All right, I haven't seen the list. Are there any citizen or public comments? Chief Brendel, is the list behind you there? Oh, is it? Okay. I'll just go ahead and ask the crowd, too. Is there anybody that would like to speak this evening, or address council this evening? Okay. Mr. Meyer, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I just wanted to take a moment to, I guess, share what I consider exciting news. Late last year, the St. Henry Parish has decided to reestablish a conference at the St. Vincent de Paul. And so we're still in the establishment process of that, but it'll be a good ministry to serve both the Erlanger and Elsmo areas. And I just wanted to share a couple of items that were good things that have happened since we've started. On December the 2nd, we hosted a coat drive where we distributed 137 coats to needy people in the area. And through the collection of 2 different food drives from St. Henry Elementary and the St. Henry District High School, we've collected over 2,000 canned goods, which will also be distributed to those needy in this area. I know it's been a number of years since St. Vincent de Paul has operated on the west side of Dixie Highway, so we're looking forward to reserving that area with those in need and with the different needs they have. I think this year will be especially challenging given the cold temperatures and the pressure on just from the general economic conditions with people having challenges meeting their heating and electric bills. So that'll be areas that we hope to host as well along with the food, clothing, and any furniture distribution through the center on Dixie Highway or on Crystal Springs Road. So I just wanted to mention that and make you aware that there are additional good things happening here in the city of Erlanger. Thank you.
Great, thank you. It's always good to hear good news. All right, the mayor's report, we'll keep brief. I guess one thing I wanted to just kind of take a straw poll over council and I guess over the crowd as well. We had gotten word from UPS that they were going to be sending golf carts into our neighborhoods to deliver Christmas packages or holiday packages. Did anybody see golf carts? I didn't see any. They made a big deal about it, and they talked about it with us, multiple times. But I guess they decided not to do it in our neighborhoods this year. You did see them on Commonwealth? Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought they were going to park a trailer at a church and then...
At the Baptist church is what I heard,
Yeah.
that they were going to be parking their vehicles there.
But I guess they didn't do it.
But I didn't see anything.
Okay.
No.
I didn't see any here, but I know they did them in Oak Brook over in Florence.
Okay. So maybe it's catching on. The other thing I wanted to mention was that this Saturday at 9 a.m., we are, Erlanger's going to be hosting, well, really, it's the mayor's group is hosting a kind of a legislative caucus among some of our state representatives to talk about the pension issues and to try to get some answers from them, make sure that we understand, or really make sure they understand how the current proposal, how their decisions would really hurt a city like us, and really every city in this area. So we've kind of put together a little bit of a presentation for them so they can understand exactly what the numbers are, and make sure that they know that the decision with the current plan would really hurt us. So everybody's welcome to come to that, but it's not we're not necessarily advertising it as a public event. It's more so just to make sure they understand they're hearing it from the cities. Okay. That's really all I had.
Will that be here?
Yeah, that'll be right here in this room.
Thank you.
Yes.
What time, sir?
9 a.m. on Saturday. All right, so we'll move on to the reports of the committees. First, under Public Safety, Police, Mrs. Suedkamp, Mrs. Kyle.
Chief Tony Wilson retired. God bless his heart and wish him all the love and happiness in the world. Patrolman Jason Whaley also retired. The police department led the funeral procession for retired clerk Julie Harris. And I've got to tell you, I have never in my life seen a more beautiful tribute in my entire life. It was not in our city because they couldn't take the crowd. So it was in Burlington. So I believe it was Mike Jansen who coordinated the whole thing, but it was Boone County, Kenton County, Erlanger, Ellesmere, Florence, I mean, all the way down to St. Barbara's Church. And it was a beautiful tribute to a beautiful woman, and I personally want to thank every single person that was involved in that. Josh Nezzi was awarded by the city for Exemplary Performance Award. The department participated in Cops and Kids. Oh my gosh, it was awesome. This, I believe, was my 20th year, and every year I swear it gets better. And it's all because of you citizens, and depending on your generosity, determines how much money each child has to spend. And they had $300 each to spend at Kmart. And I'm telling you what, we wrapped for hours. It was wonderful. Department members participated in Crescent Springs Cops and Kids. And Assistant Chief Kyle Rader graduated from the Criminal Justice Executive Development course in Richmond. And I want to wish him congratulations.
Okay, and I want to apologize again for Ms. Suedkamp and I coming late. We had a committee meeting that kind of went overboard. But anyway, Criminal Investigation Division. Most of the time, consuming reports investigated this month are related to crimes involving underage victims and other crimes. And they're not really suitable for this report at this time. But Detective Mosier was able to solve a robbery involving very little information, and that is still ongoing. Other than that, it was a relatively slow month. Our community resource officer assisted with the Christmas tree lighting ceremony at the Railroad Depot. He attended the December City Council meeting and the Heroin Town Hall meeting, scheduled the police department tours for citizens, represented the Erlanger Police Department at the Kentucky Office of Highway Safety Awards ceremony in Lexington, Kentucky with Officer Norm Lyle. He received an award recognizing his efforts in reducing impaired drivers. He also gave out gift bags to children at Head Start in Ellesmere and assisted with Cops and Kids shopping. The training during the month of December, the police department had low light firearms qualification. This was one of our first ranges to use the newly purchased pistol mounted lights for qualification. And we were very pleased to see the results and improvements in our rounds on targets using the new lights. The lights enable officers to shoot with both hands on the weapon versus holding a light independently, and I can say from knowledge that that's hard to do. This greatly enhances officer safety and liability in shooting situations. We also had occasion to use our tourniquets recently on a shooting call. Several years ago, we began carrying tourniquets in our cruiser go bags. Since that time, several other departments in the first responder community have followed suit. Recent discoveries in trauma care shown tourniquets to be life-saving devices, no longer a tool of last resort. The use of the tourniquet on one of the victims proved to be instrumental in the life-saving care rendered. There's a couple other few items, but they don't really necessarily have to be read tonight in this report. You can go online and get the report. But basically, those were the highlights for this month. And Chief Brendel is in-house.
Anything to report, Chief? All right, thank you. All right, then we'll move on to Mrs. Pitts and Mrs. Fetty for the fire EMS report.
So the fire department completed over 600 life safety inspections, 4,100 responses, and 3,000 fire EMS combined incidents in the year 2017. They attended the Heroin Town Hall, had a local Girl Scout troop visit to learn what our fire department and EMS do. Firehouse Santa listened to kids' Christmas wishes and delivered an early gift to some of the children, and this has been a tradition for 25 years. Ladder Truck 60 is being retired after 21 years of service due to expensive repairs that are needed, and it's going to be auctioned. Firefighter EMT Chase Autry was featured at St. Elizabeth Healthcare's Vital Connection News Edition. It's the 2017 winter edition. And do you have any more to add? Chief Whitaker's in the house.
All right, thank you. Next up, we've got, under Public Works, Mr. Cahill, Mr. Skidmore.
Okay, I haven't seen Mr. Wilson in here, but today is his birthday. And Mr. Joe Daugherty celebrates his 13th year with the city on January the 7th. And I would like to congratulate Mr. Turner and, how do you pronounce his last name, Tyson? For being their Outstanding Service Awards and representing our Public Works team. And that's all I have. Mr. Turner.
Nothing further to add. Mr. Bogart, Mr. Quinn are here then.
All right, thank you. All right, then next we have administration. Mrs. Skidmore, Mrs. Cahill.
The total collected taxes, property taxes, so far this year are $267,685.67, which is still owed in 2017. We only have $175,343.46 left to collect, and the total so far in 2017 is $3,946,021.76, so we can keep on moving on for a while.
Right, and the code enforcement citations, total collected this month was $3,522.76. And please mark your calendars for the 28th of January. It's free ice skating party at the Northern Kentucky Ice Center, and that is on Erlanger Crescent Springs Road. And you do have to be an Erlanger resident, and you do have to show ID. That's it.
Thank you. Mrs. Hoffman's in the house. Anything to add? All right, thank you. All right, next we've got Finance and Business Development. Mr. Blankenship, Mr. Montgomery.
Fiscal year 2019 budget worksheets have been distributed to each of the departments, and the staff has begun their preliminary work on the revenue estimates for the coming year. Each council member will be sent a copy of the budget calendar for the preparation of the 19 budget once the departmental meeting has been set. And mark your calendar for Saturday, March the 3rd. That's going to be our annual, tentative date at least, for our annual budget retreat. So please mark that aside. That's all I have, Mr. Montgomery. And Mr. Bodie is here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bodie. All right, next we've got buildings, codes, building, and zoning. Mr. Burke, Mr. Nicely.
Things fine.
All right. Nothing to report?
Fine,
And,
good.
all right. Do we have Mr. Hahn in the house? Oh, okay. All right. So you've heard the reports of our committees. Do I entertain a motion that they be adopted as presented? Motion by Mr. Cahill, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. All right, we've got the reports of our representatives. Are there any reports from the representatives this evening? Mrs. Kyle, I saw your hand first.
Excuse me, have a brief report. As I mentioned last month, the museum is now closed for the winter, but it will reopen in March of this year. During this time, volunteers and staff will still be working on inventory, and if you're interested in helping with this winter project, please join the Historical Society on Thursdays from 10 a.m. until noon. And then the next meeting, the January meeting, will be at 7:30 on January 10th at the Depot Museum. And that's it.
And I saw Mrs. Skidmore, yes? Renee, can you turn on your mic?
Yes. I'll start over. Kenton County Alliance had their monthly meeting today at the Kenton County Library. It began at noon and ended around 1:30. Laura Brinson was the guest speaker for Northern Kentucky Health Department. There is a grant available for a substance abuse educator, and I've given that paper to Joe Christofeld, and he's either going to put it on the website or put a link to it. One of the requirements for this grant is expertise in public health. 3 messages that will be addressed are adult prevention, that's the 18 to 25-year-old awareness of alternative relief, patient empowering and knowledge, and reckless drug abuse. Matthew 25 Ministries currently utilizes empty prescription bottles to reuse in third world countries. I'm sure they're cleaned very well, so there's no residue in the bottles. Naloxone distribution and coordination reported 722 kits distributed and 49 lives were saved. Sergeant Todd Rice reported he provided information that was requested. He was requested to do a 5-year report for the number of overdoses versus number of deaths related to overdoses. During the 5-year time frame, there was a 300% increase in overdoses. The report included Erlanger and Ellesmere, and when the numbers were calculated with the population, overdoses, and deaths, the cities were pretty close to equal. Erlanger population was over 18,000. Ellesmere's population is a little under 9,000. And there was some concern about stating overdose as compared to alcohol or people sleeping in cars. So they weren't really sure that this information is totally correct, but it was a good starting point. And there will be no February meeting for the month of February in the Kenton County Alliance. So when you ask for reports from committees, I won't be raising my hand in February.
We'll have a much shorter meeting, right?
Yes, yes. And like I said, Sergeant Rice did attend the meeting, and he was very instrumental in the information that he provided. And the report, thank you.
Thank you. Renee, I'm glad you attend those. You're always there, and you always give us a thorough report. So I kid when I say that.
Oh, thank you.
Any other? Oh, Spitz?
Keep your fingers crossed, but I got a hold of Megan Sanfus, and hopefully there's finally a municipal government meeting coming up, and maybe I'll have a report next month.
All right, any other reports from representatives? All right, seeing none, then we'll move on to the reports of city operations. First up, the city engineer, Mr. Viox. Anything to report?
Yes, sir. I'm giving a report for David Hahn. He's out of town. He has been approached by the property owner at the corner of Elizabeth Street and Hallam Avenue. That's next to the cemetery. That property owner has been maintaining a piece of property that belongs to the city for a lot of years. If you look at the drawing, you can see where it says Hallam Avenue, At the time of the Dixie Highway, before the underpass, when they got ready to build the underpass, they had to build a bypass around the underpass while it was under construction. So the city got Mrs. Alice Hallam to dedicate 25 foot in 1928 to the 25 foot of right-of-way on Hallam Avenue, so the street could be improved for the buses to get around the underpass construction. In 1929, Mrs. Hallam deeded to the city the additional 25 feet you see there, along with a small strip of land out to Dixie Highway. The city hasn't been doing anything with that property. We haven't even been maintaining it. I think the property owner says he's been maintaining it for a number of years, and he approached David to see if he can acquire it. So David said, if you have any interest in deeding this land to this property owner at their request, he would suggest you have a committee meeting so he could explain the alternatives. I said I would present it to him this evening so we could set the committee meeting.
If we put this on the, we can put this on the January 16th meeting? And would David contact the property owner?
David's been in contact with the property owner, correct?
Okay. All right, thank you.
That's all I have, sir.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the city attorney, Mr. Gatlin. Anything to report?
Just a couple things. Happy New Year to all. Certainly a beautiful morning this morning, wasn't it? If you like polar bears and penguins. There are several things on legislation. We have 4 second readings. I think most of those are fairly self-explanatory. If you have any questions, we can go over them at that time, and that's all I have to report, Mayor.
All right. Then next we've got the city council attorney, Mr. Wickman.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
All right, thank you. We've got the city administrator, Mr. Kremer.
Yes, the Holbert Avenue foreclosure analysis the staff will present that at the committee meeting here in January. We attended a meeting with Duke explaining their 17.4% increase that they're seeking for this year. That will affect both the citizens and the city's energy bills, so we'll monitor that. Historically, they've only gotten about half of what they request, so we'll be looking into that and seeing how that's going to affect our budget and the citizens. The only other thing is, I know it's very cold, but in the spring will be coming here pretty quickly. We're going to start looking at our local parks. We're kind of looking at now just the smaller parks we have around the neighborhood and what we can do to spruce those up a little bit to make them more available for the residents in some of these areas. Other cities have been doing quality of life assessments to raise money for that. You know, I don't know if we need to do that level, but there are some low-cost additions we can put on them to make them more usable to the neighbors. So if anybody has opinions on that, I'll be looking for that here in the next couple months. Any of your questions, that's all I have.
You've heard the reports of the representatives and the city and city operations. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mr. Nicely. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. All right, Mrs. Hoffman, do we have any correspondence to review this evening? Don't forget your microphone.
We received a letter from the Harris family thanking the city for their support in the passing of Julie Harris, a former employee of ours. And we also received a card from it's Todd Rice. I'm going to get his community resource officer. Okay, we received a card from him thanking the city for their support in the passing of his mother. And That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you. Do we have any bids to review this evening?
No bids for me.
All right. Do we have any old business to review? Go ahead, Ms. Spitz.
I don't know if this is old business or new business, but I'm going to bring it up because a lot of residents have talked to me about it, and I just wanted to find a way to let this not happen anymore. There's been a stop sign put on Lakemont by, what's the name of the road? Yeah, Borderlands. So some people were really upset about it, and so they contacted me, and one of the things I heard was that the HOA wanted it, but I talked to Rick Bogart, and he filled me in on the details of the months of what you guys did and what happened. I was wondering, like, in the future, especially over there, because there's been so many stop signs put up over there, if we would have had a heads up on that, it would have made my life a lot easier, because Christmas break, I was bombarded with it, and I really didn't know the story. But from what I understand, and tell me if I'm wrong, some residents approached you that there was a visibility issue because of landscaping, and then the HOA was given an amount of time to take that down, and they didn't, so then the stop sign was put in. Is that pretty much how it went down?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary.
Okay. Is there any way that we could have been left out of that, and maybe the resident should have contacted all those residents to talk to the HOA? Or what do you think? I don't know. I'm just...
Yeah, I think we are in charge of the stop signs. I mean, it's up to the city to put them up, because we're the ones that have to patrol them.
Oh, no, I mean about them taking down that barrier that was blocking the visibility, the HOA.
Oh, could we have been in charge of that?
No, could we have maybe had the residents talk to their HOA to make them do that instead of us putting a stop sign in?
Yeah, and I bet I got a dozen phone calls when it was being discussed, and that's what a lot of people said. It was a vegetation issue, not a stop sign issue, and the vegetation didn't get cut back, or they chose not to. And it really is more to it than that. I mean, we look at it pretty closely. There's sight line issues and visibility issues, and there's also just the speed of the cars. And for some reason, I thought we discussed that here.
No, if we did, I didn't hear it. I don't know if anybody else knew.
I know when it was being brought up, I went to one of the HOA meetings out there as well to discuss it with them, and the overwhelming consensus from them is that they wanted it.
Okay.
So.
All right. I just wanted to bring up, maybe next time, just let us know so we kind of heads up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry to surprise
That's
you.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to jump back to my report here real quick. One thing that the person who writes the administrative reports left out was that she received the Outstanding Municipal Clerk of the Year award, Sherry Hoffman. So I want to acknowledge her. I got to get this right. So Northern Kentucky Municipal Clerks Association nominated and chose Sherry Hoffman as the Clerk of the Year last year. So I apologize for not bringing it up. For some reason, she left it out of her own report. But congratulations. It's a good honor for Erlanger and for her.
Thank you, man.
Excuse me. I've just one on old business. Can we get an update on what's going on with dispatch?
Okay, so for the Kenton County Dispatch, they did send us last week or the week before. I think it's been 2 weeks. I think the end of that last week before the holidays. They did send us an MOU for their new version of an MOU for a possible merge. In addition to that, per our request, they sent us a sorry, I want to make sure I say the words here right. They did the annual subscription fee. for us to enter into the digital radio system. So I asked them for, well, I didn't ask for the MOU, they provided that for the merge, but they also provided us how much it would cost for us to enter into the digital system. So the digital system is what the Tri-County area is going to. Right now we're on analog system. In order for us to be on the digital system, there's a lot of costs. The last version that they gave us, the first one, I requested that they redo. The second one, they want an upfront cost of over $1 million to get into the system, to actually be able to use the radio system that they are using, and then an $80,000 annual fee after that. I don't believe right now they're accounting for the taxes that we currently pay for county taxes, because we do pay county taxes, and we have funded partially the Kent County Dispatch over many years in the past, and we haven't used it. So I don't think they're taking into account that. So I'm still in negotiations with them to see how we can make this work out. So, you know, trying to make sure we're not forced to stay off of the system just because they own it. That's kind of the criteria there. I'm hoping to, as soon as we can get some numbers solid, we will be having a meeting next week as a staff to rediscuss the dispatch again, since the holidays kind of drug that out. But that's kind of where we're at right now, just seeing if we can financially and operationally make everything work out. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, if we can, let's put the dollars aside. Okay, we all know, especially our police officers, the county does not have the best dispatch. Period. We do. And the citizens of our county, our city, our sister cities, whoever we might be servicing at the time, first and foremost, our officers, our firefighters. This is not about dollars and cents, folks. This is about lives. It's about lives. Thank you.
It's a very good point. Thank you for your passion on that, Patty. And I will also make sure everybody's aware, too. We did get a letter from Ellesmere that stated that they are planning to leave our system and to move over to the county. I think everybody knew that, but just to make sure. And, you know, I think something that's kind of reassuring, some of the initial calculations we've looked at, we think there may still be a way that it can still make sense, even money-wise, even without Ellesmere. So that's good news, too. It's not, and it isn't. It isn't all just money, but.
Patty, I can assure you that when we are discussing this, there is a huge human value that our dispatch brings to the city, and we are accounting for that. What we will, as a staff, we will present all the options to the council for vote, but we want to make sure you guys have all the facts before we do that.
I appreciate that, but in the interim, our dispatchers are in limbo.
They are in limbo.
It's horrible. It's horrible for them. You know, I mean, their families, their income, everything is centered around the decision that nobody seems to be willing to make one way or the other. And I do happen to know that the county does not give any kind whatsoever, any kind of emergency care over their phones, period. They don't do it. They don't explain CPR to people. They don't explain how to keep your child alive until somebody can get there. Gosh, you guys, it can't be about money. It cannot ever become about money and I'm all for a merger. If they can prove to me that they can give us what we already have, I'll be on that banner just flying all kinds of flags. But I have not seen that to date.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, there's one other part on top of that, too. Not only do our dispatchers give emergency care over the phone, they do it in Spanish. if necessary. And the county doesn't do that either. So, yeah, we do. We've got a really amazing thing. All right.
Did it answer all your questions?
It did, and just to be clear, I do want to know what the money comes out to be, of course, but it's not the sole consideration, obviously.
It's not.
There is a human factor here that's very much involved, and we can't move forward until we know that people are safe, and so that's obviously priority number one. But I do know we're also going to be facing some additional expenses with this pension issue, and so we got a March 3rd budget meeting, so I've got to look at some numbers, that's all. So, thank you, but that was very helpful. Any idea when we'll have some more firm figures?
So the county's been really pushing us to make a decision, and the staff has put, I wish we would have kept count, because the amount of hours, especially that Matt Allen, fire and the police department have put into this have just been astronomical. They've done some really good work since we started this. But like I said, when we bring it to the council, I want you guys to have all the facts. So I've got to have locked in numbers. This is the first time I've actually had the county lock into a number. The first number was just incredibly out there. Yeah. They brought it down a little bit to a more reasonable. It's still not what I consider reasonable. So I do expect to get a third submission rate. You know, because if they don't give it, if it's not reasonable, they're going to keep us off of a digital system, which is very bad for the citizens. Because it's a better radio. But like I said, we have been working many hours, and our presentation is pretty solid. But we're just waiting for some good numbers to be able to present.
You know, I understand the difference between the analog and digital, but it's my understanding that none of our MDTs are going to work in our cruisers with their program. Is that true or not true?
That's not true.
Oh, okay, that's what I heard.
Yeah, whatever system we choose, we'll have the same capabilities. With a merge, we won't have the same capabilities that we have on our computers right today, but it'll be comparable. So, I mean, it's not like we're going to be where we were 10 years ago.
Okay, that's my concern, is that we're going backwards. Yeah, thank you so much.
You know, I had heard that something wouldn't work as well, too, Patty, and this might be what you're thinking of. And if it's important, or if I don't explain this properly, maybe Chief Whitaker could explain it better. But the new digital radio system doesn't do the tones. It doesn't communicate with the tones for the fire and EMS. Is that correct? Is that getting in too deep? Okay. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pitts.
So when we do negotiations, can we negotiate that the personnel operating dispatch learn how to walk people through emergencies? Can that be part of the negotiations?
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with that. I didn't know if that's true, so I will research that tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm not sure if anybody in the back, I've never heard that before, but I will definitely verify that. And we, parallel with working on keeping our dispatch, we're also working on must-haves if we would merge, part of our MOU. So that would be one of them that I'd like to include.
Thank you.
Any other comments on dispatch? Oh no, go ahead. If you've got any other old business, new business.
I just want to make sure you're done with dispatch, because I don't have a question about dispatch.
Okay.
Okay, my question is, when we decided that we were going to move the citizens' comments to the beginning of the meeting, and then we were going to let them talk at the end of the meeting, and you know, it was kind of an uproar. I thought we were going to have some kind of paperwork that went with that, like an ordinance or.
We're working on that. I think that's going to be discussed at the next committee meeting.
It's on the agenda for the committee meeting.
We didn't want to do it twice.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mrs. Fetty.
I think it was a couple of meetings ago we talked about a small business tax incentive program, and I had brought up the possibility of creating an Erlanger Business Association that could, have a grouping of different business leaders across our city that could help us establish this type of program. I was wondering if we could talk about that at the next committee meeting, setting up an Erlanger Business Association, and kind of thinking about the key leaders that we would want to talk to about this idea.
Okay. We'll get that on the agenda. All right, any other new business? All right, seeing none. Before we get into legislation, we'll open up the floor again. If there's anybody that had any public comments, feel free to come up to the stand, introduce yourself. Seeing none, then we'll move on to legislation. First one is an ordinance regarding the Child Care Center text amendment. Second reading.
It's an ordinance amending the Erlanger zoning ordinance, adding child care centers within the neighborhood shopping center zone by summary. This is merely a text amendment which would add child care centers to the already existing neighborhood shopping center zone.
All right, do I have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Pitts. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Suedkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, motion carried. One thing I don't think I mentioned earlier with these, there's five mics that can be on at once. So if anybody else might be wondering why we're toggling them on and off, it's not so that we can't be heard. It's because the system can handle 5. Okay. So going on then to the next one is the ordinance regarding the sign ordinance text amendment. This is the second reading.
One other thing I've noticed about these microphones, which maybe other people have learned as well, when you turn your microphone off, this then becomes a speaker and you can hear better. Have other people noticed that? Maybe they noticed it at 7:01 and I just figured it out at 7:55. Hey, like I say a lot, I'm public school educated, so 19 years of Kentucky public education, the ceiling only goes so high. All right. So, an ordinance, this is second reading, an ordinance amending the Erlanger zoning ordinance, amending sign regulations. By summary, this is a fairly extensive text amendment to the planning and zoning sign regulations, making it content neutral as per the requirements of the United States Supreme Court decision in Reed v. Gilbert. This proposed text amendment clarifies several sections of the sign regulations based upon past interpretations and administration, updating out-of-date cross-references, adding provisions for messages and small detached signs. It is attached, it's fairly lengthy, and it was recommended for approval by the Kenton County Planning Commission based on a public hearing held on October 5th, 2017.
I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Blankenship, second by Mrs. Suedkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say, roll call vote.
Ms. Kyle?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Suedkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Nicely?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion carried. Next is an ordinance regarding the wage scale. This is the second reading.
It's an ordinance of the City of Erlanger and Kenton County, Kentucky, amending the pay plan to include the positions of Police Social Services Coordinator and Administrative Grant Manager. By summary, we are amending the pay wage plan and adding the items on Schedule J, which you will see are in that pay band between $42,815 and $67,815. This is a second reading.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Suedkamp, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Nicely? Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery?
Yes, ma'am.
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 All right, motion carried. Next is a municipal order regarding the OKI representative appointment.
Mayor, I think you skipped the ordinance on codification.
Oh, thank you.
Mr. Wickman, you prepared it?
Approving and adopting a supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the city. By summary, the ordinance adopts the 2017 S1 supplement to the codification. It's the first
Second reading.
supplement since the recodification, and includes all the ordinances through Ordinance 2454.
Okay, sorry about that. I didn't mean to skip over that. Do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mr. Montgomery, second by Mr. Blankenship. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Yes, ma'am.
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 All right, motion carried. Then the next is the municipal order regarding the OKI representative appointment.
So municipal order number 0102-1801, a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger and Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the reappointment of Councilmember Tom Cahill Jr. as a representative of the city to the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana OKI Regional Council of Governments.
All right, do we entertain a motion to adopt as read? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Pitts. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Motion carried. Next is a municipal order regarding the PDS representative and alternate appointments.
So municipal order number 0102-1802, a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger and Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the reappointment of Mayor Tyson Hermes as the representative of the city to the Northern Kentucky Planning Development Services, PDS, and the appointment of Councilmember Jessica Fetty as the alternate.
Do I entertain a motion?
I have a question. Does Randy not want to do it anymore?
I think Randy would still like to do it.
Yeah, I'm perfectly willing to do it.
It's not uncommon that the appointment, or that the alternate changes, and you would be aware of that. I don't know, did you say that you didn't want to do it anymore when Randy took over? Okay, well, I mean, but it's not uncommon that the appointments change.
Is this a political maneuver?
I would not say it is, no.
He did when he was talking to me. He told me it was purely political.
I did not say it was purely political, absolutely
Really?
not. I said Mrs. Fetty said she would love to be the appointment.
No, that's not
The
what you
alternate.
said.
Here we go again.
What you said was it would be improper politically for you to appoint me.
I did not say that.
Okay,
There's
continue.
nothing, I've never heard of something that's improper politically.
You said it would be stupid from a political standpoint for you to appoint me, and you said if I were in the same position, I would do the same thing. And I assured you I would not, because I don't like you having your actions attributed to me.
Okay.
So that is what you said.
Let me make it clear that this is the alternate position. This would be appointing me as the representative, and I have been the representative, and I've represented the city for PDS for 3 years now. I've never had an alternate sit in for me. If this is something that we would like to discuss more, I'd be happy to table it and talk about it at the committee meeting. Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion that we adopt.
Well, it just has absolutely nothing to do with Mrs. Fetty. She's very qualified. But I do think that it's a real slap in the face with your position using it against Randy since he's running against you for mayor. And that's the way I see it. I may be totally wrong, but that's the way I see it.
Okay. I appreciate that, and that's not the case. So I'll ask again, if we have a motion, if we do not, we will discuss this more at the committee meeting. The motion?
I'll make a motion, we vote on it now.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second? All right, motion dies for lack of a second. We'll discuss this at the committee meeting. All right, next is the municipal order regarding the Board of Adjustments appointments.
It's municipal order number 010218. I guess now it'll be 02. A municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the reappointment of Steve Conley, James Molly, I hope I didn't butcher that, and Rob Newhouse as members of the Board of Adjustment for the City of Erlanger.
All right, do we have a motion?
I have a question, sir.
Sure.
It's my understanding that Rob Newhouse no longer lives in the city, and it's public knowledge that he has a lengthy police record, so I would suggest that he no longer serve the city in this capacity.
Do you have somebody that you'd recommend?
I'd be happy to take the appointment if you don't have anyone else.
Okay. Yeah, it's not, this is a citizen, it's a citizen board.
Okay, well.
But
We're talking about the Board of Adjustments. I don't think the city council can be a member of the Board of Adjustments.
that's correct.
Well,
So
I would suggest that we find someone else considering all the circumstances that are involved.
All right, and I'd like to verify too his address.
Sure. Thank you.
And are we under any kind of time constraint on that?
There is a period of time. I'm not sure what it is. I actually pulled up the statute. I think it's 90 days, but there is a period of time. We certainly have time to talk about it at the committee meeting.
All right. All right, then next is the municipal order regarding the code enforcement, the code enforcement board appointment.
So municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of Linda Dietz as a member of the Code Enforcement Board for the City of Erlanger.
All right, do I entertain a motion to adopt? Motion by Mrs. Pitts, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is the municipal order regarding the local appeals board appointments.
This is a municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of James Brown and Rebecca Reckers to the local appeals board for the City of Erlanger for the enforcement of the Kentucky Building Code.
All right, do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mr. Cahill, second by Mrs. Suedkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Before you leave this evening, I do have a proclamation here for you. Do we have to, if we swore them in, would it have to be the public meeting, or could we do it right after the meeting? Okay. Since you're here, would you mind sticking around and we'll swear you in afterward? Okay, okay. All right, then finally is a municipal order regarding the Municipal Government League appointment.
It's municipal order of the City Council of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving the appointment of Mayor Tyson Hermes as the principal representative of the city to the Municipal Government League of Northern Kentucky, and council member Corine as the alternate.
All right, do I entertain a motion? Motion by Mr. Cahill, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Motion carried. All right, do I entertain a motion that we adjourn? Go ahead, Yep.
I forgot to mention this during old and new business. I just wanted to remind people that if they're concerned at all, there's a public hearing this Thursday at 6:15 on 2332 Royal Drive in Fort Mitchell regarding the List Farm, the changing of the, what do you call it? Thank you, zoning. So if anybody's concerned, right now it's zoned for single unit houses, but the zoning change could let them mix in condos with that. So if anybody has any concerns about that, they might want to show up to that meeting this Thursday at 6:15. Thanks.
My biggest concern is going to be Narrows Road.
Traffic, yeah.
Yeah, the traffic. And you said, what is the date again?
Thursday, the 4th at 6:15 in Fort Mitchell, that 2332, I believe it is. Royal Drive, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, to entertain a motion that we adjourn? Motion by Mr. Nicely, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, meeting adjourned.